Turquoise is a gem material that has been prized for millennia, and if you are lucky enough to have a December birthday or anniversary or other special occasion, you're very lucky to have the choice of two very interesting birthstones. First, Tanzanite, which is one of the rarest gemstones in the world, and of course, turquoise, one of the most historical and ancient gems in the world. Here are 5 things you should know about turquoise. Turquoise is a gemstone material, and of course, even though it's named after the color turquoise, it can actually be found in several different colors, including gray, yellow, and even lots of different hues of green, like a grassy green, lime, and even avocado green. A true turquoise is the rarest and most prized color, and this is because it requires the element copper in order to form. When you get some of those other greenish, more yellowish shades, this is usually because of the presence of iron, which is an element that is much more prevalent in our environment. Very similar to opal, turquoise requires very select conditions in order to form, and that's what makes it so rare. Unlike stones like emerald or ruby, which are formed in metamorphic environments which involve volcanic activity, turquoise is formed in sedimentary rock, so that's why we find it in places like Mexico and Arizona, very arid conditions. It also needs to form in an area that has very copper-rich groundwater, and this is very acidic, and that's what's going to create that chemical reaction with other minerals in the environment, like phosphorus and aluminum. And of course, the more copper that is present, the more beautiful, true turquoise color is going to form in that gem material. The most valuable qualities of turquoise are this kind of robin's egg blue turquoise, and it is often called either Sleeping Beauty turquoise, which is named after a mine in Arizona, or Persian or Iranian turquoise, because Iran was one of the original sources of this stone. Like a lot of things in the gem trade, it's important to know that you should take these descriptions with a little bit of a grain of salt, because they are thrown around quite a bit. And for a lot of people in the trade, it's just their way of describing ideal color. But if you see it listed online or with a jeweler, sometimes it doesn't necessarily mean that the turquoise was actually mined in Iran or in Arizona. So that's definitely something that you're going to want to double check if you're in the market to purchase this stone. The other thing to know about very high value turquoise is that turquoise in general is actually judged on 3 different criteria: color, texture, and matrix. So with color, you are looking for that medium blue, very saturated, intense robin's egg blue color, and very importantly, that you want it to be very uniform. The whole stone should have a very uniform color. You don't want kind of patches of lighter color or white or darkish kind of colors in there either. A lot of people don't realize that turquoise is actually gemstone material, and of course that's because it has that opaque finish. It doesn't have that sparkle or light transparency. It's an opaque stone, and this is because it's actually not a true mineral. It's actually a combination of multiple minerals, which actually makes it a rock aggregate, very similar to Lapis Lazuli and Malachite. And you can learn more about all of these stones in our rock aggregate video. As you can imagine, because this is a rock aggregate, so think of something like a marble, there are lots of different textures out there that we can find. So sometimes it's very fine and smooth and very even, and other times you're going to find them that are very rough and very porous, and you can see kind of all these different veining of different minerals in the stone. So as I mentioned, one of the criteria for turquoise that it's judged on for value is texture. So for gem material, of course, we want that microcrystalline texture. We want it to be very smooth, very even, very low porosity. This is important for a few different reasons. The first one, of course, if it's very fine textured and very low porosity, then it just looks nicer. It looks very kind of shiny. It can take a better polish, and it looks like gem material, like something we see in a classic Van Cleef & Arpels piece or card. If the stone is rougher and a higher porosity, not only does it look a little bit less fine and less likely to be set in jewelry, it can also absorb elements from the environment, so it can actually change color over time. In ancient times, it was even considered a bit of a mood stone because, of course, the wearers were noticing that the turquoise was kind of changing its appearance over time, and they thought it was maybe absorbing negative energy. Regardless of the quality of turquoise, it's important to know that almost all pieces that we see in jewelry have been treated to help stabilize that color over time so that you're not buying a piece and noticing, of course, that it has either lightened or darkened. There are lots of different materials that can be used, sometimes wax or plastic or different epoxies, but if you are buying a high-end piece, of course, this is something that you're going to want to clarify And you're definitely going to want to double check that dye hasn't been introduced into whatever has been used to stabilize the piece in order to improve its color, because this is definitely something we see with some mass market turquoise pieces. The other thing you're going to be wary of when you're shopping for turquoise is the term reconstructed turquoise. This is something that is very misleading because of course it sounds like it is actually turquoise, but in fact this is a material that has been made out of powdered minerals that sometimes do not even contain turquoise at all. It's combined with plastic and other epoxies in order to form something that looks like turquoise, and it is dyed the same color, but again it might not even contain turquoise at all. And I will say that I have seen this used in some very expensive jewelry, so that is a little bit disappointing, a little bit of a red flag, and it's definitely something you're going to want to double check in those descriptors and with your jewelers when you're shopping. That third value criteria that I mentioned with turquoise is matrix, and matrix is those either white or dark kind of veining that we see throughout the gem. Turquoise often forms in either sandstone or limonite, and limonite is what gives us those dark lines, where sandstone you're going to either get those kind of beige or tan colored lines. Of course, with these very, very high-end kind of luxurious turquoise pieces, we don't usually see the veining, but it is totally up to your opinion and your personal taste, and some people love it because it really gives the character to the turquoise gemstone. When you are purchasing a piece of matrix turquoise, you want it to have, again, a very uniform appearance. We call it Spiderweb Matrix, and you want that matrix to be very even looking, very well spaced out like a spider web, and this is going to be the most expensive and highly prized matrix turquoise. It is valuable enough that unfortunately we do see imitation spiderweb turquoise out there, and especially after the 70s when turquoise was extremely popular and a little bit hard to find. Imitations of turquoise really entered the market in the 80s. Glass and plastic are actually used the most to imitate high value kind of Sleeping Beauty-esque turquoise. And of course we do see that dark spiderweb matrix kind of painted on with dye a lot. So of course you want to double check that, you want to ask, and if you are shopping kind of out at like craft fairs and things where you might see some, vintage pieces of jewelry, that is something you're going to want to be kind of on the lookout for. But of course those dark veins are going to come off with something like an acetone very easily. There are other gem materials that are used in place to imitate turquoise again, so something like a howlite, which I've mentioned before. This is something, it's a white stone with some black veining, so it can be used to imitate things like coral, and when dyed turquoise it is often used to imitate this as well. Thank you so much for watching, and definitely check out more on Rock Aggregates in that video, and if you have any more questions about turquoise, feel free to leave them in the comments below.